I just really wanted to share this moment of beauty and tranquility with you all today. I'm currently in Battle Great Woods. Look at that beautiful blue sky, not a chemtrail in sight. And it's a crisp Monday morning, the 12th of February 2018. And although I've walked in this woods many a time, previously with my beautiful little doggy Jacques, but I haven't been to this location before. I honestly couldn't find it if I tried, I'm sure. Again, my sense of internal GPS is absolutely not embedded in me this life. But I decided to come on this beautiful little walk to take in this beautiful energy of the trees and nature around me, because also I was due to be filming an interview this morning, and that's just been postponed. That will happen again with an experiencer who's also an artist. And I thought I'd just share a little bit of her story, which will be part of a much larger one when we do get to have that meeting. And it's an unusual little vignette of a tale set about 25 years ago, when she and some friends in the middle of England decided that they were going to take a little jaunt down to Glastonbury, arriving about 11 p.m. and they managed to get into the grounds, which, for those of you who don't know, it's a ruin, and there's some very high remaining walls to the ruin. Very beautiful. I haven't been there for a long time. I can't quite recall the height of it all to mind, but this is what she was reporting to me. And the group of the four of them, who were just there to really just have a sense of the place at that time of night, take in the atmosphere, feel what they could feel, split up, and were just doing their own thing in their quietness. And my lady looked up and to the sky and thought she saw something move. So to get a reference, she positioned herself nearby one of the great arches that still stand, and she did really think that there was something there, but that wasn't what really caught her attention. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a movement, and as she turned in the direction of that, she saw on this very high, ruined wall a creature such as she's never seen before. And I don't know if any or many have seen before. Especially in England, you don't hear of these things too often. But what she saw was an entity, a being, a 3D creature in the region of 7 or 8 foot tall, standing on this very tall wall. And she described it as having a cape kind of affair on, with a very tall collar, such as you see in the old Hollywood Dracula films. And this being simply leant forward, arms outstretched, and swooped down to the ground. Now, this creature was not in any kind of bird-like form. It was humanoid and had the regular proportions, except for the height, I guess, from what she recalls. And it landed to within about 20 feet of where she was, and she, as you might imagine, suddenly became absolutely frozen to the spot with terror, as she said. It was absolutely terrifying. So, as she was observing this being, she didn't see any. She said it was very dark. It was darker than dark, and of course, where they were 11 o'clock or more at night now, it was already dark, very dark. But this creature seemed to be darker than dark, so she couldn't see any outline of features. And she was joined by her companions then, who had also seen a second of these beings and had come to find her. And she had been carrying a torch, which she was insensible to with this new state of affairs, i.e. this creature being stood in front of her. And her friend said, quick, use the torch, shine the torch on it. And as she began to move the torch from the ground upward, she also realised that it wasn't standing on the ground. It was floating about 20 or so feet above it. And as she was moving up the body with the beam, she said, honestly, Joanne, it was really like a Star Trek moment. And she made a kind of swishing movement with her open palm. And she said it was really like a transporter, like you see in Star Trek. And it then shifted another 40 feet distant. And this was witnessed by her friends as well. And the other being seemed to be slightly more distant from them. And then they blinked out. No, I haven't heard any such tales of that ever. And when the next day they came to whatever shops they were in, they asked one of the shopkeepers if they'd heard such a story on retelling it, and he said that there was some kind of legend of some creatures that lived in the I guess the basement area of Glastonbury, but these creatures they weren't seen in that area, and I don't know if they come out at certain times, whether it's a frequency vibrational aspect that brought them in, or simply because it was rare to have someone there at that time and they were curious. Who knows? Although the group were terrified, no harm befell them, and nothing was done in that direction either. There was no threat perceived except the fear of the unknown. And when I mentioned this to someone who was in the military and had done training in the UK, they said that there was a legend about Salisbury Plain, which is a vast area in the UK that the military use for training practices of all kinds, of what he called the Nighthawks. And, this might be just a tale that the military have put out so nobody goes trespassing on their land, who knows. But the Nighthawks apparently are humanoid beings, but apparently with the face of a boar, some kind of hog-faced creature. And should you encounter those, apparently that's the last time you'd be seen. But I did some research, not terribly in depth, but the research I did brought no response, no information either about the Glastonbury event or Salisbury Plain. So if anybody has any information about that, I would be really grateful, because I'm going to do an interview with this lady at some time in the near future, and she'll be retelling that story herself. And it would be interesting to add any other bits of information that you guys may have or know of. But, these guys weren't drunk, they weren't high on anything, they were just, going on a little trip out, and had not expected to see anything. So whatever it was that the lady saw in the sky, that kind of paled into insignificance at the close encounter that she had with whatever this being was. And she kept calling it a vampire. And I said, well, why would you do that? She said, well, it's just that it looked like the archetypal drac with the high collar, the long black cape, which was full length, and they were quite slender, very slender, and very tall. So there we go, a tale from beside the stream. This is Joanne Summerscales of the ET Newsroom. sharing a little vignette on a beautiful, non-chemtrailed sky day. Soon to be off for a coffee.